Ryan and Emily Cooper seemed like the kind of couple who had everything: love, success, and a life so perfectly polished that no one could imagine the darkness waiting behind their front door. Ryan and Emily Cooper were the kind of couple that made people believe in perfect marriages. Their house sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac where children played on bicycles and neighbors waved from tidy porches. From the outside, their life looked like something out of a glossy magazine. Emily, a devoted nurse at the local hospital, had a smile that could soften even the hardest day. Patients adored her gentle way of speaking and her ability to make anyone feel at ease. Ryan, who owned a small landscaping company, was equally admired for his work ethic. He spent his mornings mowing lawns and his afternoons shaping gardens into vibrant displays of color. Together, they seemed like a team built on trust and affection, the kind of couple who shared secret jokes and weekend plans. On warm summer evenings, they were often seen walking hand in hand around the neighborhood. Ryan would wave to passing cars while Emily carried a thermos of iced tea, her laughter echoing softly across the quiet street. Their lawn was always perfectly trimmed, their flower beds bursting with seasonal blooms, and their holiday decorations were the first to go up each year. Friends often joked that the Coopers were living the dream. Inside their carefully arranged home, framed photographs captured their shared milestones, vacations on sandy beaches, anniversary dinners, and smiling snapshots from backyard barbecues. Everything about their lives suggested stability and love. But appearances can hide more than they reveal. Those closest to Emily began to notice subtle changes in the months before everything unraveled. She arrived at work with tired eyes and a distracted air, often losing herself in thought during quiet moments. A coworker once mentioned seeing faint bruises on her arm, but Emily quickly brushed it off as clumsiness. She started staying late at the hospital even when her shifts ended on time, telling colleagues she had extra paperwork. When a friend gently asked if something was wrong at home, Emily hesitated before forcing a smile and changing the subject. Behind the closed doors of their two-story home, the once easy rhythm of their marriage had begun to falter. Small disagreements over finances and schedules grew into late-night arguments whispered fiercely enough to wake the silence of the house. Ryan, once cheerful and outgoing, became guarded and quick to frustration. Emily, who had always been open-hearted, began to retreat into herself, keeping her phone close and her thoughts even closer. Neighbors might have noticed the tension if they had looked more closely, but the Coopers were skilled at maintaining their carefully crafted image. They hosted barbecues, exchanged holiday gifts, and smiled for every passing neighbor, all while carrying the heavy weight of a marriage slowly splintering in private. To anyone watching from the street, Ryan and Emily seemed untouched by trouble, a couple immune to the ordinary strains of life. Yet within their picture-perfect home, a quiet storm was gathering, one that neither of them could keep hidden forever. The night Emily disappeared began like any other, cloaked in the routine comfort of a quiet Thursday. A soft rain fell over the neighborhood, slicking the streets and tapping against the windows in a steady rhythm. Emily's hospital shift was scheduled to end at 11, and she had promised to bring home takeout on her way back. Ryan told police later that he waited in the living room with the television on low, glancing at the clock as the hours stretched longer than expected. Midnight came and went, and the driveway remained empty. By morning, the first pale light of dawn revealed her car still parked outside, untouched since the day before. Inside, her phone rested on the kitchen counter and her purse sat neatly by the door, as if she had intended to leave only for a moment and never returned. Ryan claimed he called her friends and co-workers, but no one had heard from her. At first, he told officers he assumed she had stayed late at the hospital or gone to clear her mind after a long shift. His voice sounded steady when he explained that Emily sometimes needed space, though neighbors remembered seeing him pacing the front porch before sunrise, his figure tense against the dim glow of the streetlights. When Emily failed to appear for work the next day, the hospital staff alerted police, triggering the beginning of a county-wide search. Detectives arrived at the Cooper home that morning, noting the immaculate state of the house. There were no signs of forced entry, no overturned furniture, no broken glass. Everything appeared strangely undisturbed, almost too perfect for a home where someone had supposedly vanished overnight. Officers canvassed the area, speaking to neighbors who recalled hearing nothing unusual beyond the sound of rain. Flyers with Emily's smiling face spread quickly through the community. Volunteers organized search parties, combing wooded trails, drainage ditches, and back roads. The story made the evening news, bringing reporters to the quiet street where camera crews filmed Ryan standing by the mailbox, his face pale but composed as he pleaded for anyone with information to come forward. The public responded with sympathy, gathering for candlelight vigils and sharing Emily's photo online. Yet behind the scenes, detectives began noticing small inconsistencies. Ryan's account of the previous evening shifted slightly with each retelling. He said he had gone to bed early, then later admitted to watching television until after midnight. He claimed Emily sometimes left for late-night drives, but her car key remained on the kitchen counter. Friends described Emily as dependable and cautious, the kind of person who would never vanish without telling someone. As the search dragged into the weekend, tension settled over the town like a heavy fog. Each passing day without answers deepened the mystery and sharpened the growing unease. The sight of Emily's car in the driveway became a haunting symbol, a silent witness to whatever had happened after she finished her shift that rainy Thursday night. While neighbors offered casseroles and comfort, police quietly tightened their focus on the one person who had been closest to her when she disappeared. The first meaningful break in the investigation came when detectives turned their attention to the network of cameras scattered throughout the county. Gas stations, traffic lights, and convenience stores held hours of footage that could reveal a trail no human witness could provide. For days, officers pored over grainy recordings, following any vehicle that might match the description of Ryan's dark green pickup truck. At first, the process felt endless, a maze of false leads and poor angles. Then, just after dawn on the fourth day of Emily's disappearance, an officer spotted something peculiar. At 2 o'clock in the morning, long after Ryan claimed to have gone to bed, a truck identical to his rolled past a gas station on a quiet rural highway. The timestamp matched the night Emily vanished, and the vehicle was headed toward an area few residents ever visited, a remote quarry on the edge of town. Detectives brought Ryan in for another round of questioning, presenting the footage without revealing all the details. He admitted he had gone for a late-night drive, but insisted it was only to clear his head after an argument with Emily earlier that evening. He described circling the back roads before heading home, a story meant to explain the unexpected journey. Yet his explanation raised more questions than it answered. Why hadn't he mentioned the drive earlier? Why head toward an abandoned quarry in the middle of the night during a rainstorm? With quiet persistence, investigators expanded their search to Ryan's garage and work truck. What they found there deepened their suspicions. Several tools, including a shovel and a heavy-duty tarp, had been scrubbed clean in a way that seemed almost too thorough. The scent of industrial cleaner clung to the air, sharp and chemical. On the surface, everything looked spotless, but forensic testing revealed faint traces of soil embedded in the grooves of a shovel handle and beneath the rubber lining of the truck bed. The soil did not match the type found in the Cooper's backyard or any of Ryan's regular landscaping jobs. Phone records offered another thread. GPS data from Ryan's cell phone placed him near the quarry during the early hours of the morning, contradicting his initial claim that he had spent the night at home. Investigators also recovered deleted text messages between Ryan and Emily from earlier that week, messages hinting at rising tension and Emily's plans to spend a few nights away from home. Despite these discoveries, the evidence remained circumstantial. There was no body, no direct proof of violence, and no eyewitness to a crime. Still, the pattern was becoming hard to ignore. Detectives began quietly coordinating with search and rescue teams to comb the quarry and surrounding woods, aware that each passing day reduced the chances of finding Emily alive. As officers mapped out potential search zones, they kept their findings from the public, unwilling to tip their hand to the man they increasingly suspected was hiding the truth. 2 long weeks after Emily's disappearance, a break came not from technology but from chance. A hiker exploring a remote stretch of woods near the old quarry noticed a patch of earth that looked strangely disturbed. The ground was uneven, covered with a thin layer of leaves that had clearly been scattered by human hands. At first, the hiker assumed it was the work of animals, but a faint chemical smell lingered in the damp air, something sharp and unnatural. He called authorities, and within hours a team of officers arrived, cordoning off the area with bright yellow tape as forensic specialists prepared to dig. The rain-soaked soil yielded its grim secret slowly, but the unmistakable shape of a human form soon emerged from beneath the mud. Wrapped carefully in a blue tarp and bound with garden twine, the remains were later confirmed to be Emily Cooper. The discovery sent shockwaves through the quiet town. News crews crowded the quarry entrance as word spread, their cameras catching every grim expression of the officers carrying evidence bags to waiting vehicles. Forensic technicians worked through the night, collecting fibers, soil samples, and fragments of material that might link the grave to a suspect. The tarp immediately stood out. Investigators recognized the brand and color as a perfect match to a roll of tarps sold at a local hardware store where Ryan had a business account. A receipt retrieved from the store's records showed a purchase just days before Emily vanished. Back at the Cooper residence, detectives watched closely as Ryan was informed of the discovery. Surveillance from an unmarked car captured his reaction in chilling detail. Neighbors described seeing him through the living room window when the phone call came. At first, he stood perfectly still, the receiver pressed to his ear as though he had not understood the words. Then his shoulders stiffened, his head dropped slightly, and his free hand tightened against the edge of the counter. It was a small movement, almost imperceptible, but investigators noted it with care, a reaction less like grief and more like the heavy acceptance of a long-dreaded inevitability. While the community mourned, detectives compiled the growing mountain of evidence. Soil found beneath the tarp matched the particles lifted from the grooves of Ryan's shovel and the rubber mat of his truck bed. GPS data from his phone aligned precisely with the quarry's location on the night of Emily's disappearance. Even the garden twine used to secure the tarp matched a spool found in his garage. Each piece was small on its own, but together they formed a picture too detailed to ignore. As the forensic team presented their findings, the image of Ryan as a worried husband began to collapse. He had presented himself as a grieving partner desperate for answers, but the silent proof hidden in soil and fibers told another story. Investigators knew they had moved beyond suspicion. The evidence buried in the woods had spoken louder than any confession ever could. With Emily's body recovered and the forensic reports in hand, detectives closed in on Ryan with a quiet but relentless precision. They began by re-examining every statement he had given since the night of her disappearance, laying his words side by side with the mounting physical evidence. The inconsistencies that once seemed like minor slips now formed a chain of contradictions too strong to dismiss. He had claimed to be asleep when his truck was seen on camera, insisted Emily sometimes left without warning despite testimony from friends describing her as meticulous, and offered explanations for the clean tools that no longer held weight. Each detail painted a picture of a man attempting to stay one step ahead of the truth, yet every careful lie was now unraveling. Detectives executed a search warrant for the Cooper home and Ryan's business property, documenting every inch with photographs and evidence tags. In the garage, they discovered small but telling traces of quarry soil clinging to the wheel wells of his truck, missed during his frantic cleaning. Receipts from hardware stores matched the tarp and twine found at the burial site. His phone's GPS records, once dismissed as unreliable, were confirmed by independent analysts, placing him at the quarry during the critical hours of the night Emily vanished. Each discovery tightened the noose of suspicion. Ryan was brought in for formal questioning, this time with no room to maneuver. Investigators presented their findings methodically, sliding photographs across the table and detailing the scientific matches. His calm demeanor, once praised by neighbors as a sign of quiet strength, began to crack. He shifted in his chair, his jaw tightened, and beads of sweat gathered on his forehead. Though he never offered a confession, his silence became its own admission. Detectives left the room certain that they no longer faced a mystery, only the task of presenting an airtight case. The trial that followed captivated the community. Courtrooms filled with reporters, neighbors, and strangers drawn by the chilling contrast between the smiling family man and the evidence of calculated violence. Prosecutors outlined a motive built on control and fear, revealing text messages where Emily confided in a friend about her plans to leave the marriage. They argued that Ryan's late-night drive was no aimless escape, but a carefully planned disposal of the woman who no longer wanted to stay by his side. Forensic experts testified about the soil analysis, the matching tarp fibers, and the GPS trail that led straight to the shallow grave. After weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for only a few hours before returning a guilty verdict for second-degree murder. Ryan sat expressionless as the decision was read, his face a mask that revealed nothing of the man who once played the part of a loving husband. The quiet suburban life he had tried so hard to protect had been exposed as a carefully constructed facade. In the end, it was not a single mistake, but the accumulation of tiny, undeniable truths that brought him to justice, each fragment of evidence forming a story he could no longer control.